I am Alara Vance, and I am 36 years old. Christmas Eve was supposed to be the night my family found out they were finally getting a grandchild. Instead, it turned into the night my own father looked me straight in the eye across the dinner table and erased me from his life with one sentence. The house was full of polished silverware, expensive wine, and fake smiles. I waited until everyone had taken a bite of prime rib, set my fork down, and said as calmly as I could, "I am pregnant." For half a second, no one moved. My mother's hand froze around her glass. My sister stared at me like she was watching a movie. My father leaned back in his chair, his jaw tight, his eyes cold in a way I had never seen before. He didn't ask who the father was. He didn't ask if I was happy or healthy. He didn't ask anything. He just said a few quiet, careful words about my baby that I won't repeat here. Then added, "You are not part of this family anymore. You are out of the will." That was it. Years of doing everything right, wiped out between the salad and dessert. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I reached under my chair, took the small, perfectly wrapped present I had brought just for him, and set it in the middle of the table. Inside was the receipt for the $80,000 in back taxes I had just quietly paid off to save his reputation. A parting gift he didn't deserve. Then I pushed back my chair, wished everyone a Merry Christmas, and walked out of that house. The winter air bit at my skin as I reached the car, but I felt a strange, humming clarity. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A notification flashed on the screen. New device login. Alara's legacy laptop. My pulse didn't even quicken. I knew exactly what was happening. Julian, my golden boy brother, had finally gone back to the attic. He'd found my old work machine and was trying to use a cached digital certificate I had intentionally left active. He thought he was hacking me. He thought he was being clever. He had no idea I had already routed his access into a sandbox. A digital playground that looked like my company's mainframe but was actually a dead-end trap. This was the same brother Marcus and Helena had spent my college fund on so he could open a nightclub in Macau that folded in 6 months. I was always the spare. The one they expected to pay the bills and shut up. They viewed me as a financial reservoir, not a daughter. Marcus and Helena had spent years draining my hard-earned savings just to keep Julian's ego afloat. They broke me then. But today, I am the one holding the hammer. 3 weeks later, the ambush arrived in the form of a thick envelope. A mandatory involuntary bankruptcy petition. Marcus hadn't been idle. He had spent the last 90 days bribing my operations manager, Jason, to forge internal ledgers. Their plan was as cruel as it was desperate. They wanted to declare my company insolvent so they could use the paper loss to hide $5 million Marcus had embezzled from his own clients at Hawthorne Crest. They were going to sink my life to keep Marcus out of a federal cell. My lawyer, Daniela Ruiz, sat across from me, her eyes tracking the documents. She pointed to a line on the promissory note. "This signature is a masterpiece," she said. "But your mother used her old notary seal, the one that expired 8 years ago." They got sloppy. They were so focused on the $5 million that they forgot the details. I leaned back. Let them think they're winning. I've already seeded a memo in the sandbox about a fake relocation to Milwaukee. Julian will find it tonight. Julian didn't just find it. He gorged on it. Driven by the need for a win, he used the stolen laptop to bypass security on a server he believed held our intellectual property. He was wrong. The server he accessed actually controlled life support infrastructure for a regional hospital network, a critical national asset. Because ShieldWorks protects government-protected sectors, his login triggered a silent alert at the Department of Homeland Security. I watched the logs on my screen in real time. I watched him move through the fake directories, his greed blinding him to the tripwire he was crossing. It wasn't a family dispute anymore. Julian had just committed a federal felony by attempting to breach a protected government sector. Access wasn't stolen. It was earned through his own bottomless entitlement. The day of the hearing, the courtroom was packed. Marcus stood near the front, flanked by news cameras, wearing his best grieving father mask. He looked like a man who had already won. Then, Daniela stood up. She didn't talk about family. She talked about the logs. She showed the court that the person who attacked the federal grid was Julian, operating from the Hawthorne Crest internal network. My father's face turned the color of wet ash when Daniela mentioned the law of vicarious liability. Because Marcus had given Julian power of attorney over his affairs, Marcus was jure legally responsible for the federal crime. I watched the golden child's mask shatter. Julian started screaming that his father had promised him immunity. Marcus tried to look away, but the cameras caught every twitch of his mouth. Before the judge even pounded the gavel, I triggered my final move. I had already sent the forged ledgers to the Internal Revenue Service. The mask didn't just slip. It disintegrated. 3 weeks after the trial, the silence in the Vance estate was absolute. Hawthorne Crest was gone. The assets were seized through civil forfeiture. Because I was the only person with the liquid capital to do so, I bought the family mansion at a government auction for a fraction of its value. I walked into Marcus's hospital wing. He was sitting in a chair, staring out the window, his expensive suits replaced by a thin gown. I handed him a single sheet of paper. It was a lease agreement. "You can stay in the guest house, Marcus," I said. "But the rent is due on the 1st of every month. No exceptions." My mother, Helena, started to cry about a family discount. I didn't even turn around. "Family is a luxury you can no longer afford," I told them. I walked out and let the heavy doors close behind me. I spent 36 years waiting for my father to say he was proud of me. I finally realized I was the only person who needed to say it. Marcus didn't hate me. He just didn't see me as a person. To him, I was an asset to be liquidated. We have to understand that narcissism doesn't have room for love, only for utility. Here are 3 rules I've learned from the wreckage. Rule number 1. Boundaries are not walls, they are filters. Blood gives you a name, but only respect gives you a place at my table. Rule number 2. Success is the best restraining order. You don't need to argue when your tax bracket does the talking. And rule number 3. Never save a sinking ship that tried to drown you first. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are asking, Alara, why did you wait 36 years? Why did you keep paying their taxes? Why did you let them treat you like a human ATM for so long? It is easy to judge from the outside. But what Alara experienced is something we see in financial and emotional abuse cases every single day. In psychology, we call this the slot machine effect. Think about it. When you pull the handle on a slot machine, you lose almost every time. But every once in a while, it lights up, the bells ring, and you get a tiny win. That tiny win makes you forget the 1,000 losses. Toxic families like the Vances operate exactly like that. They gave Alara just enough crumbs of hope, a fake smile at dinner, or a rare thank you to keep her addicted to the idea that one day, they would finally love her. She wasn't being weak. She was waiting for a jackpot that was never going to come. But let's talk about the moment she stopped playing the game and started running the casino. Alara didn't win because she was mean. She won because she used financial self-defense. First, look at her audit strategy. Scammers, even the ones you share a last name with, absolutely hate details. The moment Alara stopped accepting their vague emergencies and started looking at the specific ledgers, the house of cards began to shake. When she found that $80,000 tax discrepancy, she didn't just pay it to be nice, she used it as a receipt of their incompetence. Second, notice her digital hygiene. Julian didn't get in because he was a genius. He got in because he exploited a legacy connection. In the real world, your greatest threat isn't a stranger in a hoodie, it is the person who knows your first pet's name or your mother's maiden name. Alara's honeypot trap is a masterclass in how to turn someone's predictable greed against them. She gave him enough rope to hang himself, legally speaking. Finally, consider the buyout. Alara buying the mansion at a government auction is the ultimate power move. She didn't steal it. She used clean, audited capital to buy her freedom. She invested in her own peace of mind. The lesson here is simple but brutal. You cannot negotiate with people who view you as an interest-bearing account. If someone only calls you when they need a wire transfer, you aren't a daughter or a son, you are a vendor. And as bất kỳ good CEO nào cũng biết, đôi khi bạn phải sa thải những khách hàng tồi tệ nhất của mình, ngay cả khi họ là người đã nuôi nấng bạn. If you are currently the spare in your family, stop waiting for the bells to ring. Take your coins and walk away. Did Alara's story hit a little too close to home? Have you ever had to audit your own family? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. If you muốn có thêm những góc nhìn sâu sắc hơn về tâm lý sinh tồn và thành công, hãy nhấn nút đăng ký. Stay sharp, stay smart. And remember, your worth is not a line item on someone else's balance sheet. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You're asking, why did Alara wait 36 years? Why did she pay $80,000 of her own money just to save a father who hated her? Why didn't she just walk away sooner? It's easy to judge when you're looking at the wreckage from the outside, but Alara wasn't being weak, she was trapped in a psychological loop we call the slot machine effect. In the world of behavioral psychology, this is known as intermittent reinforcement. Think about it. If a slot machine never paid out, you'd stop playing in 5 minutes. But because it gives you a tiny win every 100th pull, you stay glued to the seat for 10 hours. Toxic families like the Vances operate the same way. They give you crumbs of hope, a rare thank you, or a fake smile at dinner just often enough to keep you addicted to the idea that one day, you'll finally hit the jackpot of their approval. Alara wasn't stupid. She was waiting for a payout from people who were playing with a rigged deck. But let's talk about how she flipped the script using financial self-defense. Alara didn't win because she got lucky, she won because she operated like a forensic auditor. First, notice her audit strategy. Scammers, even the ones you share a last name with, absolutely hate details. The moment Alara stopped accepting the family emergencies, and started looking at the specific back tax receipts and ledger entries. The house of cards began to shake. She turned her parting gift into a receipt of their incompetence. Second, look at her digital hygiene. Julian didn't hack her because he was a genius. He got in because he exploited a legacy connection. In the real world, your biggest threat isn't a stranger in a hoodie. It's the person who knows your first pet's name or has access to your old hardware. By seeding that Milwaukee honeypot, Ilara turned Julian's predictable greed into a federal crime. Finally, consider the buyout. Buying the family mansion at a government auction is the ultimate power move. She didn't steal it back. She used clean, audited capital to buy her freedom. She invested in her own peace of mind. The lesson here is brutal, but necessary. You cannot negotiate with people who view you as an interest-bearing account. If someone only calls you when they need a wire transfer, you aren't a daughter or a son, you are a vendor. And as any good CEO knows, sometimes you have to fire your worst clients, even if they raised you. If you are currently the spare in your family, stop waiting for the bells to ring. Take your coins and walk away. Did Ilara's story hit a little too close to home? Have you ever had to audit your own family? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. If you want more deep dives into the psychology of survival and success, hit that subscribe button. Stay sharp. Stay smart. And remember, your worth is not a line item on someone else's balance sheet.